This audiobook edition of Jawaharlal Nehru's The Discovery of India is brought to you by Giribala Joshi. This short YouTube podcast is a part of a larger project. Please subscribe to the channel and like and share the videos. This audiobook is created with the help of advanced text-to-speech AI technology.
Epilogue. Nearly 5 months have gone by since I took to this writing, and I have covered 1,000 handwritten pages with this jumble of ideas in my mind. For 5 months, I have traveled in the past and peeped into the future and sometimes tried to balance myself on that point of intersection of the timeless with time. These months have been full of happenings in the world, and the war has advanced rapidly towards a triumphant conclusion, so far as military victories go. In my own country also much has happened of which I could be only a distant spectator, and waves of unhappiness have sometimes temporarily swept over me and passed on. Because of this business of thinking and trying to give some expression to my thoughts, I have drawn myself away from the piercing edge of the present and moved along the wider expanses of the past and the future. But there must be an end to this wandering. If there was no other sufficient reason for it, there is a very practical consideration which cannot be ignored. I have almost exhausted the supply of paper that I had managed to secure after considerable difficulty, and it is not easy to get more of it. The discovery of India, what have I discovered? It was presumptuous of me to imagine that I could unveil her and find out what she is today, and what she was in the long past. Today, she is 400 million separate individual men and women, each differing from the other, each living in a private universe of thought and feeling. If this is so in the present, how much more difficult is it to grasp that multitudinous past of innumerable successions of human beings? Yet, something has bound them together and binds them still. India is a geographical and economic entity, a cultural unity amidst diversity, a bundle of contradictions held together by strong but invisible threads. Overwhelmed again and again, her spirit was never conquered, and today, when she appears to be the plaything of a proud conqueror, she remains unsubdued and unconquered. About her, there is the elusive quality of a legend of long ago, some enchantment seems to have held her mind. She is a myth and an idea, a dream and a vision, and yet very real and present and pervasive. There are terrifying glimpses of dark corridors which seem to lead back to primeval night, but also there is the fullness and warmth of the day about her. Shameful and repellent she is occasionally, perverse and obstinate, sometimes even a little hysteric, this lady with a past. But she is very lovable, and none of her children can forget her wherever they go or whatever strange fate befalls them. For she is part of them in her greatness as well as her failings, and they are mirrored in those deep eyes of hers that have seen so much of life's passion and joy and folly, and looked down into wisdom's well. Each one of them is drawn to her, though perhaps each has a different reason for that attraction, or can point to no reason at all, and each sees some different aspect of her many-sided personality. From age to age, she has produced great men and women, carrying on the old tradition, and yet, ever adapting it to changing times. Rabindranath Tagore, in line with that great succession, was full of the temper and urges of the modern age, and yet was rooted in India's past, and in his own self, built up a synthesis of the old and the new. I love India, he said, not because I cultivate the idolatry of geography, not because I have had the chance to be born in her soil, but because she has saved through tumultuous ages the living words that have issued from the illuminated consciousness of her great ones. So many will say, while others will explain their love for her in some different way. The old enchantment seems to be breaking today, and she is looking around and waking up to the present. But however she changes, as change she must, that old witchery will continue and hold the hearts of her people. Though her attire may change, she will continue as of old, and her store of wisdom will help her to hold on to what is true and beautiful and good in this harsh, vindictive, and grasping world. The world of today has achieved much, but for all its declared love for humanity, it has based itself far more on hatred and violence than on the virtues that make man human. War is the negation of truth and humanity. War may be unavoidable sometimes, but its progeny are terrible to contemplate. Not mere killing, for man must die, but the deliberate and persistent propagation of hatred and falsehood, which gradually become the normal habits of the people. It is dangerous and harmful to be guided in our life's course by hatreds and aversions, for they are wasteful of energy, and limit and twist the mind and prevent it from perceiving the truth. Unhappily, there is hatred today in India, and strong aversions, for the past pursues us and the present does not differ from it. It is not easy to forget repeated affronts to the dignity of a proud race. Yet, fortunately, Indians do not nourish hatred for long, they recover easily a more benevolent mood. India will find herself again, when freedom opens out new horizons, and the future will then fascinate her far more than the immediate past of frustration and humiliation. She will go forward with confidence, rooted in herself and yet eager to learn from others and cooperate with them. Today she swings between a blind adherence to her old customs and a slavish imitation of foreign ways. In neither of these can she find relief or life or growth. It is obvious that she has to come out of her shell and take full part in the life and activities of the modern age. It should be equally obvious that there can be no real cultural or spiritual growth based on imitation. Such imitation can only be confined to a small number which cuts itself off from the masses and the springs of national life. True culture derives its inspiration from every corner of the world, but it is homegrown and has to be based on the wide mass of the people. Art and literature remain lifeless if they are continually thinking of foreign models. The day of a narrow culture confined to a small fastidious group is past. We have to think in terms of the people generally, and their culture must be a continuation and development of past trends, and must also represent their new urges and creative tendencies. Emerson, over 100 years ago, warned his countrymen in America not to imitate or depend too much culturally on Europe. A new people as they were, he wanted them not to look back on their European past, but to draw inspiration from the abounding life of their new country. Our day of dependence, our long apprenticeship to the learning of other lands, draws to a close. The millions that around us are rushing into life cannot always be fed on the sere remains of foreign harvests. Events, actions arise, that must be sung, that will sing themselves. There are creative manners, there are creative actions and creative words, that is, indicative of no custom or authority, but springing spontaneous from the mind's own sense of good and fair. And again in his essay on self-reliance, it is for want of self-culture that the superstition of traveling, whose idols are Italy, England, Egypt, retains its fascination for all educated Americans. They who made England, Italy, or Greece venerable in the imagination, did so by sticking fast where they were, like an axis of the earth. In manly hours, we feel that duty is our place. The soul is no traveler, the wise man stays at home, and when his necessities, his duties, on any occasion call him from his house, or into foreign fields, he is at home still, and shall make men sensible by the expression of his countenance that he goes the missionary of wisdom and virtue, and visits cities and men like a sovereign and not like an interloper or a valet. I have no churlish objection, continues Emerson, to the circumnavigation of the globe, for the purposes of art, of study, and benevolence, so that man is first domesticated, or does not go abroad with the hope of finding something greater than he knows. He who travels to be amused, or to get somewhat, which he does not carry, travels away from himself, and grows old even in youth among old things. In Thebes, in Palmyra, his will and mind have become old and dilapidated as they. He carries ruins to ruins. But the rage for traveling is a symptom of a deeper unsoundness affecting the whole intellectual action. We imitate. Our houses are built with foreign taste, our shelves are garnished with foreign ornaments, our opinions, our tastes, our faculties, lean on and follow the past and the distant. The soul created the arts wherever they have flourished. It was in his own mind that the artist sought his model. It was an application of his own thought to the thing to be done and the conditions to be observed. Insist on yourself, never imitate. Your own gift you can present every moment with the cumulative force of a whole life's cultivation, but of the adopted talent of another, you have only an extemporaneous half-possession. We in India do not have to go abroad in search of the past and the distant. We have them here in abundance. If we go to foreign countries, it is in search of the present. That search is necessary, for isolation from it means backwardness and decay. The world of Emerson's time has changed and old barriers are breaking down, life becomes more international. We have to play our part in this coming internationalism, and for this purpose, to travel, meet others, learn from them and understand them. But a real internationalism is not something in the air without roots or anchorage. It has to grow out of national cultures and can only flourish today on a basis of freedom and equality and true internationalism. Nevertheless, Emerson's warning holds today as it did in the past, and our search can only be fruitful in the conditions mentioned by him. Not to go anywhere as interlopers, but only if we are welcomed as equals and as comrades in a common quest. There are countries, notably in the British dominions, which try to humiliate our countrymen. They are not for us. We may, for the present, have to suffer the enforced subjection to an alien yoke and to carry the grievous burdens that this involves, but the day of our liberation cannot be distant. We are citizens of no mean country, and we are proud of the land of our birth, of our people, our culture and traditions. That pride should not be for a romanticized past to which we want to cling, nor should it encourage exclusiveness or a want of appreciation of other ways than ours. It must never allow us to forget our many weaknesses and failings or blunt our longing to be rid of them. We have a long way to go and much leeway to make up before we can take our proper station with others in the van of human civilization and progress. And we have to hurry, for the time at our disposal is limited and the pace of the world grows ever swifter. It was India's way in the past to welcome and absorb other cultures. That is much more necessary today, for we march to the one world of tomorrow where national cultures will be intermingled with the international culture of the human race. We shall therefore seek wisdom and knowledge and friendship and comradeship wherever we can find them, and cooperate with others in common tasks, but we are no suppliants for others' favors and patronage. Thus we shall remain true Indians and Asiatics, and become at the same time good internationalists and world citizens. My generation has been a troubled one in India and the world. We may carry on for a little while longer, but our day will be over and we shall give place to others, and they will live their lives and carry their burdens to the next stage of the journey. How have we played our part in this brief interlude that draws to a close? I do not know. Others of a later age will judge. By what standards do we measure success or failure? That too I do not know. We can make no complaint that life has treated us harshly, for ours has been a willing choice, and perhaps life has not been so bad to us after all. For only they can sense life who stand often on the verge of it, only they whose lives are not governed by the fear of death. In spite of all the mistakes that we may have made, we have saved ourselves from triviality and an inner shame and cowardice. That, for our individual selves, has been some achievement. Man's dearest possession is life, and since it is given to him to live but once, he must so live as not to be seared with the shame of a cowardly and trivial past, so live as not to be tortured for years without purpose, so live that dying he can say, "All my life and my strength were given to the first cause of the world, the liberation of mankind." Footnote, Nikolai Ostrovsky. End of footnote. End of the epilogue to The Discovery of India. Postscript, Allahabad, 29th of December, 1945. During March and April, 1945, the members of the Congress Working Committee, interned in Ahmednagar Fort prison camp, were dispersed and sent to their respective provinces. The camp jail was wound up, and presumably reverted to the military authorities. 3 of us, Govind Pant, Narendra Dev, and I, left Ahmednagar Fort on March 28 and were brought to Naini Central Prison where we met a number of our old colleagues, among whom was Rafi Ahmed Kidvi. For the first time since our arrest in August 1942, we had an opportunity of having first-hand accounts of some of the occurrences of 1942, for many of those in Naini prison had been arrested some time after us. From Naini we 3 were taken to Ahmednagar Central Prison, near Bareilly. Govind Pant was released on account of ill health. Narendra Dev and I lived together in a barrack in this prison for over 2 months. Early in June, we were transferred to the mountain prison of Ulmota, which I had known so intimately 10 years earlier. On June 15, we were both discharged, 1,041 days after our arrest in August 1942. Thus ended my 9th and longest term of imprisonment. Since then 6 months and a half have passed. I came from the long seclusion of prison to crowds, intense activity and continuous traveling. I spent only a night at home and then hurried to Bombay for a meeting of the Congress Working Committee. And then to the Shimla conference convened by the Viceroy. I found it a little difficult to adjust myself to the new and changing environment and could not easily fit in. Though everything was familiar, and it was good to meet old friends and colleagues, I felt somewhat as a stranger and an outsider, and my mind wandered to mountains and snow-covered peaks. As soon as the Shimla business was over I hurried to Kashmir. I did not stay in the valley, but almost immediately started on a trek to the higher regions and passes. For a month I was in Kashmir and then I came back to the crowds and the excitements and boredoms of everyday life. Gradually, some picture of the past 3 years formed itself in my mind. I found, as others did, that what had taken place was far more than we had imagined. These 3 years had been a time of heavy travail for our people, and each person we met bore the mark of it on his face. India had changed, and under the seeming quiet of the surface, there was doubt and questioning, frustration and anger, and a suppressed passion. With our release and the turn events took, a change came over the scene. The smooth surface was ruffled and cracks appeared. Waves of excitement passed across the country. After 3 years of suppression, the people broke through that shell. I had not previously seen such crowds, such frenzied excitement, such a passionate desire on the part of masses of people to free themselves. Young men and women, boys and girls, were afire with the urge to do something, though what they should do was not clear to them. The war ended, and the atom bomb became the symbol of the new age. The use of this bomb and the tortuous ways of power politics brought further disillusion. The old imperialism still functioned, and events in Indonesia and Indochina added to the horror of the scene. The use of Indian troops in both these countries against people struggling to be free brought shame to us at our helplessness, and an abiding anger and bitterness. The temper of the country continued to rise. The story of the Indian National Army, formed in Burma and Malaya during war years, spread suddenly throughout the country and evoked an astonishing enthusiasm. The trial by court-martial of some of its officers aroused the country as nothing else had done, and they became the symbols of India fighting for her freedom. They became also the symbol of unity among the various religious groups in India, for Hindu and Muslim and Sikh and Christian were all represented in that army. They had solved the communal problem amongst themselves, and so why should we not do so? We are on the eve of general elections in India, and these elections absorb attention. But the elections will be over soon, and then? The coming year is likely to be one of storm and trouble, of conflict and turmoil. There is going to be no peace in India or elsewhere except on the basis of freedom. End of the postscript to The Discovery of India.
You have been listening to The Discovery of India, written by Jawaharlal Nehru. This concludes the audiobook edition produced by Giribala Joshi. Thank you for listening.